From sphere to superhero, let's sculpt Mr. Terrific. Starting from a basic sphere, I begin shaping the head using the grab brush to pull it into a rough but recognizable form. Then I remesh to get more geometry and start carving in the eye socket. I pull out the nose, adjusting shapes with the grab and draw brushes as I go. Next I pull out the ears with the grab brush, then mask out the neck area and shape it by dragging the geometry out. I keep refining the head form with subtle tweaks using the grab brush. I apply remesh again to increase the poly count and get a smoother surface to work with. Then using the smooth brush, I clean up rough areas. I start refining the eye and mouth region with the draw brush, adding some depth and form while constantly adjusting the surrounding shapes using the grab brush to maintain the overall facial anatomy. Now I focus more on the head shape, especially the nose, eyes and mouth. Using the draw brush, I start adding subtle details like slight creases and form on those areas, including some refinement on the forehead. I keep adjusting with the grab brush, constantly checking against my reference images on the other skin to make sure everything is staying accurate. Here, I start focusing more on the mouth. I use the crisp sharp brush to cover the lip details, then gently build up some volume around the cheek area with the clay strip brush. I also use the move brush to tweak the shape and get mouth position just right. I keep refining the mouth using the move brush, still adjusting the shape. Then I switch to clay strip brush to add some volume around the nose and start carving the details on the ears using the draw brush. I bring in another sphere for the torso, scale it a bit in edit mode and start shaping it using the grab brush. I keep adjusting the form until it loosely resembles a torso, just enough before remeshing to allow more detailed work later. Now I start building up the torso, using the draw and clay strips brushes to add and subtract volume across the chest, abs, and sides. I begin defining key muscles groups and bring the crisp sharp brush to sketch in some anatomical lines that help separate the forms visually. Throughout this, I am constantly shifting back to the grab brush, tweaking the silhouette or nudging muscles placement until the overall form starts to feel believable. Now just like the torso, I bring in another sphere and scaling it in edit mode, I jump in with the grab brush to start shaping the overall leg form. I apply remesh and begin building up the structure using clay stripe brush and draw brushes, and I use crisp sharp brush again to sketch out the separation lines. I even begin pulling out the foot from the base using the grab brush, carefully shaping it until it starts to look like an actual foot. Then I mirror the leg to create the other side. Now I add a new sphere for the arm, place it in position and use the grab brush to shape it, especially around the bicep or tricep. After remeshing, I use crisp sharp strokes to define muscle lines and draw the hand and thumb using the grab brush. I keep using crisp brush to define the muscle lines and grab brush to adjust. To make the fingers, I start with a cube, scale it in edit mode, remesh and smooth the edges, then shape it using move and clay stripe brushes and define joints with the crisp brush. Once it looks right, I pose it with the pose brush and place it near the hand. Then duplicate it to make all the 5 fingers. And then align the fingers with the hand. Add subtle details to the finger and keep refining while checking with anatomy reference to make it look just right. Once the anatomy feels ready, I add a plane, rotate it, delete only faces and repeat it 8 times, keeping the height same as the head to check 8 head proportion. I am now adding the eyes to our mesh using a simple sphere. With the base anatomy ready, it's time to add subtle details to the body. I'll mostly use grab brush for refining the overall form. Then to build up subtle details and volume, I'll switch between the clay stripe brush and draw brush. To really make those muscle forms pop and add crispness, I'll use crisp stripe brush. You'll see me applying these steps over and over, working across all the parts of the body. Okay, so as we finish up the anatomy now, I am doing some final touches. Once I am happy with how the body looks, we are done with this part. Then it's time to create the suit for our character. So, as we move on to creating the suit, I am using a polygonal modeling system for this. What that means is, I'll start with a very simple meshes, like a cube or a cylinder, and then I'll just keep extruding faces and edges from those basic shapes to create the specific pieces of the suit I want. You'll see me repeating this extruding process quite a bit as I build the clothing. Because it's a very repetitive action, I won't go into deeper details explaining every single press. If anything is unclear or you don't understand what I did in a specific part of that time frame, please ask me in the comment section. I am happy to clarify. Now, while I am working on these suit pieces, I wanted to take a moment to talk about some challenges I faced when working on this particular character. when I first started learning character sculpting mainly from YouTube tutorials. Anyway, the issue I often ran into when I started learning was this. I always tended to create very muscular male anatomies. So because of that habit, if I tried to sculpt any male body, it almost always turned into a muscular one. For this character I am creating in this video, he has a slim fit body. So for me, it was quite challenging to get this specific body shape right. I actually had to practice a few times before I even started recording this video. It really shows you need to practice more and more so you can create any kind of body for any character you imagine. One last thing for this character, you'll notice I won't be adding many extreme details to the underlying body itself. That's because most of his body will be covered with clothes, so there's no real need to spend extra time detailing areas that won't be even visible in the final piece. Because of that, I'll mostly skip adding more intricate detail to the body. Even though I mentioned I won't be adding more details to the body, but adding details to the character's face is absolutely essential. It's really important to give the face those visible details we haven't added yet. This means refining overall face structure to make it look much better, and adding subtle, intricate details to key areas like the eye sockets, nose, lips and ears. You'll see me spending quite a bit time here, adjusting these facial features to create the exact look I want. Now, while doing all this, I am always keeping one crucial thing in mind. I must not change the height of the head. This is because the entire body is based on an 8-head measure proportion system. So if I were to change anything here, I'd have to adjust literally everything else later. A huge amount of work. I am being very careful about that. And of course, I am using all the same brushes. Alright, so you can see here I am now focusing on adding folds to the cloth. I'll be honest, this is an area I am still actively learning. So these folds might not look absolutely perfect, but I tried my best to make them look as good as possible. For those details, I'm mainly using draw brush, play strip brush and the crisp sharp brush to really define those fabric creases. From this point on, the video will primarily be a time lapse, as I might not be speaking much until the very end. My main purpose for the next few months is actually to keep polishing my anatomy skills. So that's where a lot of my focus is right now. However, I might add a voiceover, especially for texture painting part later on. Speaking of texturing, I initially wanted to do the entire process completely in Blender. Since I am not using a retopologized model for this particular content, to paint effectively in sculpt mode, I need to significantly increase the poly count. Otherwise, the poly count would look blurry or pixelated, and that just wouldn't be good. Unfortunately, increasing the poly count too much creates a lot of lag on my PC. So after some thought, I decided to texture paint the suit in Substance Painter. However, I did handle the skin texture right here in Blender, and creating the dark skin tone was actually another fun challenge for me. Anyway, make sure to keep watching the rest of the video. There's a little bonus for you guys at the very end that I think you might like. And please don't forget to subscribe to support the channel. Also tell me in the comment which character should I try to sculpt next. you so much for watching till the very end. I truly hope you like this video. And here's your bonus. I am giving away this version of the character for free. Just head over the BraineyBites website or my Patreon page to download the file for free. See you on the next video.